All right, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Fueling for Cardio Performance. I'm Jacob. I'm the GM at Octane Fitness in Atlanta. We have our registered dietitian, Alyssa Palladino, here. She's going to go through this great workshop for you guys. If you're here, it's probably because you're doing our challenge. If not, you were invited by someone, which we thank you for that. A few housekeeping things before we go. We're going to stop at the end of each section, answer a question or two. So if you have one, throw it in the chat, and I'll try to do my best to pick one or two questions each time. We obviously won't have time for every question. If we have time at the end, we can go into some more. I also wanted to take a second to remind you guys to join our Strava club, Cox Fitness, on the Strava app. You can track your runs, your bikes, your walks, or whatever, and it's kind of a community we're trying to build. So the app is free. There's a paid version, but you don't have to use that to join our Cox Fitness Club. So that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Alyssa and let her take it away.
Thanks, Jacob. And thanks all of you for tuning in today for this presentation on fueling for cardio performance. So I hope this will be helpful and practical information to kind of get you set up for success with a 4-week challenge ahead, whether you plan to do it walking, running, cycling, or some combination. Definitely your food choices will affect your results and how you feel throughout the next 4 weeks. So we're going to dive in. And I guess I will just quickly introduce myself again. Alyssa, registered dietitian. I'm based here in Atlanta. I'm in my apartment today, and I'm excited that I think some of you guys are tuning in from all over the country, maybe even all over the world, which is really awesome. All right, so here is our agenda for today. It's fairly aggressive. So if we don't get through everything, I will be sending out the slides. You guys can have them as a reference point because there is going to be a lot of content that you may want to look back on. So we're going to start with some nutrition foundations just to make sure we're on the same page, and then use that knowledge to build out the rest of the sections. We'll talk about creating balanced meals, fueling pre, during, and post exercise. We'll talk about hydration, and then again, time permitting, we'll do a kind of spotlight in a few other nutrient considerations that are important for athletes and people that are upping their activity level. All right, so the power of nutrition. I'm assuming you guys are all already sort of acknowledging the role of our food choices on health and on athletic performance because you've chosen to attend this presentation today. Just in case there's anyone on the fence, know that what we eat, how we fuel our bodies, has a really big impact on so many different aspects, from our energy levels to our mood to how we sleep, how our brain functions and we focus during the workday, our immune system, growth and development, building and repairing tissues, including muscle, disease risk, the aging process, and then what will be the target of today's presentation is our athletic performance and recovery. So to start with some nutrition foundations, macronutrients, a term that some of you may be familiar with, maybe not fully understand what they are unless you've seen me present before. I always kind of like to start my presentations with this so we're all on the same page. Basically, all the energy or calories that we get from food and also use to power our bodies comes from one of the 3 macronutrients. So carbohydrates, protein, and fat. All are essential, meaning that they must be obtained through the diet. They can't be made by our bodies. And macro means that we need them in relatively large amounts, and we require a balance of all 3 each day. So even though each of the macronutrients provides our body with energy or calories, they each play a slightly different role in food and in our bodies. So we're going to go through one by one, starting with carbohydrates, which I know have gotten kind of a bad rep recently, but they are so important as a quick, easy energy source, the ideal and preferred fuel for our brains, and then also the preferred fuel for exercise, particularly at longer durations and at higher intensities. We will be circling back to this, so hang tight. When we eat a carbohydrate, it directly impacts our blood sugar. So we eat a carb, blood sugar rises. And I know that, again, that has sort of a negative connotation, but it's actually just the way that our bodies get usable energy from carbs. It's not inherently a bad thing unless it happens in excess. That said, different types of carbs have different effects on health and on performance. So for overall health, we want to mainly focus on our fiber-rich, nutrient-rich carbs and limit carbs that are going to be coming from sweetened beverages, pastries, sugary cereals, candy, and cookies. With the exception of right before and during exercise, where the carb guidelines are actually quite distinct. And again, we'll circle back to that. But for now, know that some of our more nutritious, fiber-rich sources of carbs can be found in a variety of foods. Whole grains, including brown rice, quinoa, farro, barley, and bulgur. Whole grain bread, wraps, and pita. Pasta, including whole wheat, bean, or rice-based pasta. Fruit, such as bananas, apples, berries, or as we move into the summer, watermelon, peaches, cherries. Starchy vegetables, such as potatoes, peas, and corn. Beans, lentils, and legumes. Oatmeal, and cereal, all excellent sources of carbohydrates. Next macronutrient is protein, and protein plays a lot of really key roles in our body. It provides the structural components or the building blocks for all our tissues and cells. We need them to grow and repair. Our muscles included, so definitely an important role in exercise recovery. When we eat protein, it increases our satiety and helps us manage our hunger levels, and it also plays a role in the immune system. For overall health, we want to focus on our leaner animal-based sources of protein and also include some plant-based sources. We want to really focus on spreading our protein intake evenly throughout the day to best use it, both for managing hunger and also for building and maintaining muscle. And the easiest way to do that is just focusing on having a good source of protein at each of your meals and snacks, and actually eating meals and snacks pretty consistently throughout the day. Some of our food sources of protein, and you can see it's found in both animal and plant foods. Red meat, which includes beef and pork. Poultry, which includes chicken and turkey. Fish and seafood. Eggs. Dairy, including milk, yogurt, and cheese. Beans, lentils, and legumes. Soy, including tofu, tempeh, and edamame. And then nuts and seeds. And just be mindful if you are choosing dairy-free alternatives for milk, yogurt, and cheese to read the label and make sure that the products do in fact contain protein. In many cases, they will not. So your cashew milk, your almond yogurt, your coconut milk and yogurt usually has 0 to 1 grams of protein unless it's been fortified. And then our third macronutrient is fat. And I just like to clarify here, dietary fat and body fat are not the same things. Both are important, but eating fat doesn't make you gain fat. So body fat, the roles that it plays, and we do need some amount for insulation of our organs, protection, stored fuel source, and hormone regulation. That's true for both men and women. Obviously, excess body fat can have health risks, but so can having too low body fat. And then dietary fat plays pretty key roles as well, giving flavor to our foods, increasing our satiety, so basically like helping us feel more satisfied after a meal. And then it assists with nutrient absorption, specifically fat-soluble vitamins. A, D, E, and K are better absorbed when paired with a fat source. So say we're eating spinach, which is a great source of vitamins A and K. If we have that spinach cooked in olive oil, which is a fat, or it's a salad and we top it with some avocado, which is the fat, we're going to absorb those vitamins better. For overall health, we want to focus mainly on unsaturated plant-based fats and limit our intake of saturated and trans fats, which are mainly going to be found in animal foods, fried foods, and processed foods. And just know that, we'll circle back to this time permitting, but omega-3s are an especially healthy type of fat that plays key roles in health and exercise recovery and performance. Here's some of our healthier food sources of fats. Nuts, which includes walnuts, cashews, almonds, pistachios, and pecans. Peanut butter, almond butter, and other nut butters. Seeds like chia, flax, pumpkin, sunflower, and hemp. Avocado, olives, olive oil, fatty fish, salmon, tuna, mackerel, herring, and sardines are some examples. A little bit of an exception to that plant-animal rule. And then cheese and other full fat dairy products. I do keep these on the healthy fat food source list because even though some of the fat in dairy is saturated, you're getting a host of other nutrient benefits along with it, like calcium for our bones, and protein in some cases too. And then I guess because we talked about macronutrients, I wanted to just touch on micronutrients. Basically, this is a fancy word for vitamins and minerals. We need them in much smaller amounts compared to macronutrients, hence the term micro. They do not provide our body with energy or calories. No calories from vitamins and minerals, but they play essential roles in health, energy production, so basically how we get energy from the macros, metabolism, and then definitely exercise performance and recovery. The best way to obtain all the vitamins and minerals that we need is by eating a balanced diet, especially by eating a variety of colorful fruits and vegetables. So I like to say eat the rainbow. If you are following a restrictive diet for either a health condition or personal preference, you may be missing out on some key micronutrients and need to supplement. And as we'll see later, there are certain micronutrients that are particularly of concern for athletes or, again, folks that are stepping up their physical activity, like all of you. Okay, well, just the next section is on building balanced meals, sort of putting some of this information into practice. But I will just pause here and see if we have any questions so far.
Don't have any questions in the chat right now. Oh, we got a hand raised. If you would, drop those in the chat, and then we will get to them as each section goes on. So.
Okay, well, let's plan on taking 2 questions at the next section header then.
Yep.
Okay, cool. And again, some of you who have seen me present before, I hope that was a review, but I think it's really important to have that foundation before moving on. Okay, so our next section, building balanced meals, we're going to talk about the plate method. And here's the thing, what we eat throughout the day affects our athletic performance as much, if not more than, what we consume immediately before, during, and after exercise. So we cannot neglect what we're eating at our main meals if our goal is optimal training and overall health. We really want to eat consistent meals, and we want those meals to include foods from each of the macronutrient group, as well as plenty of colorful fruits and vegetables. Because remember, each of those macronutrients plays a different role in our bodies, and then the colorful fruits and vegetables are going to offer a host of health benefits, including giving us those micronutrients. So I love the plate method. It's a visual tool, and it empowers you to build balanced meals in any setting, and you can customize it, kind of tailor it to your food preferences. So even if you're following a vegan diet or some, you're a picky eater, you can use this tool and navigate different food settings that you may find yourself in. The portion sizes and the proportions are going to vary based on your individual needs and goals, and also your training. So the next few slides I'm going to show you are examples. I didn't develop this. It's from, and the athlete plate is actually like a formal teaching tool that was developed to help athletes and other active folks kind of tailor the components of a balanced meal based on what their training is like that day. So there's 3 plates. Well, first we'll talk about the components of a balanced meal. Okay, so veggies and fruit, we talked about why that's so important. You're going to add volume, fiber, micronutrients, antioxidants to your meal. Complex carbs going to give you energy. The lean protein is going to help keep you satisfied, manage your hunger, support your muscles and your metabolism, help you recover from exercise. And then the healthy fat, satiety, hormone regulation, nutrient absorption, and flavor. Okay, so what does that actually look like on the plate? If it's an easy training day or you're working on a weight management goal, you're kind of trying to rein in calories, you want to fill half your plate with fruits and vegetables, about a quarter of your plate with a lean protein food, another quarter of your plate with whole grains or any kind of complex carbohydrates, right? Potatoes work there too. Then you want to have a few teaspoons of healthy fats and adding flavor. You're going to see this on the slides, all the slides, but adding flavor with salt and pepper, herbs, spices, which can be dried or fresh, vinegar, salsa, mustard, ketchup, basically low-cal flavor additions. and then stick mainly to water for your beverage. Or if you're going to have juice, make sure it's diluted. Sugar-free flavored beverages are fine too. Coffee and tea is fine. And then because dairy offers some additional health benefits, you can include that as your beverage if you so desire. More of a moderate training day. So I don't know exactly what the guidelines are here, but I'd say maybe you're like running or cycling for 60 minutes. You're kind of you're upping the proportion of your plate that you're filling with the carbs, the whole grains, or the starchy vegetables. Slightly decreasing the amount of vegetables on your plate just so that you have room to increase the carbs without feeling overly full. You're still getting about a quarter of your plate with a lean protein source. You're increasing the amount of fat to 1 to 2 tablespoons instead of teaspoons. So you're adding calories and you're adding healthy fats. And then you're having an additional piece of fruit on the side instead of having kind of fruits and veggies being half your plate together. Flavoring and beverages are the same. And then finally on a hard training day, so if you're doing 2-a-days, maybe you're like running in the morning and lifting in the afternoon, or you're doing like a 90-minute or 2-hour ride, or a long run, then you're going to want to really up the carbs because remember the carbs are the preferred energy source, especially for endurance exercise. So half your plate now is going to be grains and other complex carbs. A quarter is still lean protein. A quarter is vegetables. Again, we need those vegetables for nutrients, but we don't want to fill up our bellies too much with all the volume we get from vegetables when we really need to focus on the energy-rich carbs. Upping the fats to 2 to 3 tablespoons. You're still eating fruit. You're still flavoring your food because food should taste good, and you're still drinking fluids. All right. Oh, again, the point here is even as we now kind of hone in on what to eat immediately before, during, and after exercise, I don't want you to neglect what you're eating the rest of the time too. Those balanced meals are the foundation for health and performance. All right. Any questions? I know we at least have one.
Yeah, so we got 4 here. I'm going to pick 2 of them and then we can keep on moving. So one is from Georgia and it says, is it effective to take multiple different types of vitamins or supplements? Is it a thing to take too many and it not be effective?
Yeah, we haven't really even talked about supplements and wasn't something I was really going to focus too much on during this presentation. My recommendation would be to try to eat as much of a balanced diet as possible, be as least restrictive as possible, incorporate a variety of different protein foods, carbs, fats, fruits and vegetables, and you won't be missing out really on any micronutrients. And so there's not necessarily a need to supplement. If you're following a vegan diet and you're not having any red meat or fish or dairy, you might need to supplement iron, B12, calcium, and you can overdose on supplements. It's much safer to get your micronutrients from food, which is why I recommend that approach whenever possible. But again, there are definitely cases where supplements are warranted. Go with a third-party tested brand. Be careful. Absolutely, they can be overdone, and that can be really dangerous.
And then this one is from Martine. It says, do you think electrolyte drinks / supplements, which you won't really get into, is still needed if you're eating a balanced diet, if you're training fairly hard?
Yeah, there's a whole section on hydration later, and we'll get into electrolytes. So yes, if you're a heavy sweater and you're training in the summer, you do need electrolytes for sure.
All right, and then we'll do this one real quick. From a vegetarian, this is from Jason. He says, are there any specific veggies, beans, fruits that you might recommend for cardio?
I mean, as a vegetarian, you need definitely to get some of your protein from beans, lentils, legumes, nuts, seeds, tofu, soy. So definitely making sure you're eating enough of those foods for the protein. And also vegetables have small amounts, but not significant. All fruits and all vegetables, honestly, are going to give you a variety of vitamins and minerals and different antioxidants, which are, as we'll see later, really are important for performance and recovery. So I don't think there's any specific ones I'd recommend more than others. I would say the key thing is trying to get a variety of colors. Red, orange, yellow, green, purple, blue, white, all eat the rainbow. And that's true whether you're following a vegetarian diet or a diet that includes some animal proteins.
All right, perfect. Let's keep it moving because we'll have more questions,
Great
I'm sure.
questions. Yeah, no, I love that you guys are engaged enough to even be, having these questions. So keep it up. Okay, in this next section, we're going to get into the specifics, and there's going to be a little bit of science here. And you'll see why I started with the foundation of our macronutrients. So what to eat pre, during, and post exercise. There's many different factors that affect this. So there's not one size fits all recommendations I can give you. The type of exercise matters. Are you doing cardio? Are you doing strength training? The intensity of the exercise. Are you walking and jogging, or are you like doing sprint intervals? The duration of the exercise. Are you going for 30 minutes, or are you going for 90 minutes? The timing of your last meal or snack. If it's been 3, 4, 5 hours, or you're working out first thing in the morning fasted, that's going to affect what you need to eat before versus if, you're trying to exercise and you just have lunch. The timing of your next meal and snack similarly is going to affect what you eat afterwards. Whether you need a post-workout boost or whether you can just kind of hold out. And then your individual needs, preferences, and tolerances, definitely with the pre-workout and the intra-workout fueling, gut tolerance can vary greatly from person to person. And then your fitness goals. Are you really going for performance? I work with lots of runners who are trying to like break a certain time in a half marathon or full marathon. Or are you maybe looking to lose some body fat or just kind of get your, cardiovascular health into shape? That's going to affect, how you choose to fuel pre, during, and post. So again, no one size fits all approach, but there are some basic guidelines that I'm going to share. And the first thing is to say, as athletes, we want to view carbs as performance fuel. We talked about carbs earlier. I know that they've gotten such a bad rap recently in just sort of general nutrition. They are the essential and preferred energy source for our working muscles during exercise. Okay, so we're going to feel energized. We're going to have more endurance. We're not going to get as fatigued. We spare our muscle protein if we fuel with carbs, right? So we're not breaking down muscle for energy. Helps maintain our blood sugar or blood glucose levels so that we don't bonk and our brains can like keep thinking and we don't get all like crazy and foggy brained. Anyone who's ever like trained for a marathon will know what I'm talking about. And carbs are the only fuel for high intensity exercise because it's an anaerobic pathway. So if you're doing sprint intervals, if you're trying to like sprint the end of a race, if you're doing high intensity interval training at the gym, you need carbs. Distinct from general nutrition guidelines for health, we actually want to focus on simpler, lower fiber carbs for the immediate before, during, and even post-exercise nutrition because they're going to be absorbed more quickly and more easily on our gut and be available to provide energy right away. So again, it's really important to recognize that outside of exercise, we want fiber-rich, whole grain carbs, limit added sugars, but for exercise, it's almost the opposite. So don't be confused. This is kind of why. So when we eat carbohydrates, it gets broken down into sugar, right? So if we're eating a potato, it gets broken down to sugar. If we're eating sugar, it's already sugar, right? So it happens quicker. Then our blood sugar or blood glucose rises, and that glucose or sugar is able to be used by our cells for energy. So the quicker we can have that breakdown happen, the quicker that sugar, that simple form of carb, is available for our muscles to use. And whatever we don't need in that moment is going to be stored as glycogen in our muscles for later on, which is also a good thing for endurance exercise. We can tap into that stored energy later on. So before exercise, especially if it's been a while since you've had a meal or snack, you don't want to go into that workout fasted. You want to have a snack and you want to focus on carbs. Again, the quicker absorption, readily available energy source, fat and protein slow digestion down, which generally is a good thing. It helps us feel fuller longer. We don't want that right before a workout. So the simpler the carb, the better, immediately before exercise. We also want to limit fiber here to prevent GI distress. So we don't want to still be like digesting all that fiber when we're trying to run or get on the bike. So really the fueling recommendations are going to depend on how long you have until you're going to exercise, as well as your individual tolerance. So if you've got 3 or 4 hours, just eat a regular balanced meal and follow the guidelines of the athlete's plate template to figure out, how to build that plate. But have carbs, have protein, have fat, have fruits and veggies. If you've only got 2 hours, then your pre-workout meal or snack, you want to make it more carb rich, lower fat, moderate protein, again, to kind of prevent GI distress and really emphasize those carbs. Less than an hour. So, you wake up first thing in the morning, you're trying to get out the door on your bike or out for a run, or it's the middle of the afternoon, trying to, get in your post work, run or ride, and you realize you haven't had anything since lunch, but you're trying to get out the door. Then you want to stick with easy digestible carbs. The simpler, the better. And if it's really, really close to the start of your run or your cycle, and you have a sensitive stomach, you can do liquid carbs. So you can have juice or a sports drink. Just wanted to share some ideas here. And again, you'll see that some of these things, you might just be like, okay, why is the dietitian recommending some of these foods? But again, remember, pre-exercise nutrition when it comes to carbs is almost the opposite of how we want to focus on carbs other times for health. But really, banana or any kind of fruit, this is one where you're going to get quick carbs as well as a lot of nutrients. So if you can tolerate a banana or melon or pineapple or something before a run or a ride, I would say go for it. Oatmeal is great, especially if you're doing, a morning workout. Some dry cereal, but go with something simple here, not like your high fiber cereal. Slice of toast, an English muffin, a bagel, and that will depend on how long you're going out for. A 30-minute run, maybe a piece of toast. A 2-hour run is maybe when you're going to want that bagel. It's a much more dense, concentrated source of carbs. Something like pretzels, graham crackers, or saltines. Again, we're not like saying these are like health foods, but we are saying that they're easy, quick digesting carb sources that you can just munch on and then have some energy for your run or your ride. A grain-based granola or energy bar. And again, here we want a carb-based bar. We don't want a protein bar. We don't want a high-fat nut bar. Frozen waffles, love those before a run. A fig bar or a fruit leather. Dried fruit. So raisins, dates, mangoes, apricots. This is great because you've got a lot less volume, right? When you dry out a fruit, you lose all the water. You still get all the carbs, but in a much more concentrated form. Applesauce or pureed fruit. A lot of my runner clients love this. You can even get the kinds that's like made for kids. Specialty sports products, gels, beans, chews, shot blocks. They're just sugar, but they're convenient and they're well tolerated before exercise and during exercise, as we'll see on the next slide. And then liquid options. So things like Powerade, Gatorade, or even juice, or some of the other hydration products, as long as they have carbs in them, not one of the 0 options in this particular case. All right, so this is only going to apply if you are doing longer distance running or cycling. But if you're going to be out there for 60 to 90 minutes or more, you actually are going to need to add carbs and kind of boost your energy stores at some point during the workout, so that your brain has energy, your muscles have energy. You can keep going. You don't have a low blood sugar experience, which is not fun. And again, you spare that muscle protein. We don't want to be breaking down our muscle for energy. So the recommendation is 30 to 60 grams of carbs per hour. That's a lot. It's hard to get to that 60 unless you practice, but you can start with like a gel or like a goo, they're sometimes called. Each of those little gels or goos typically has like 25 grams of carbs. And if you are doing maybe some of the fluids that you're taking in on the run, or also like Gatorade or Powerade, are also giving you some carbs, you can hit that 30-gram mark. But if you don't want to go with a sports product, you can take out whole foods with you. This is going to be a little bit easier on a bike versus on a run, but things like pretzels, crackers, dried fruit, fruit leathers can totally work. I mentioned the sports drinks already. As long as they have carbs, they can kind of top off your carb stores. And then, I've known runners that, take little honey packets or little packets of maple syrup, or even candy out, Swedish fish, gummy worms. Anyone who's familiar with the endurance running or endurance cycling world will know that this does happen. It's all sugar. Your blood doesn't really know the difference. And then post exercise. that's when we want to start thinking about recovery. So we really want to focus on within that hour of finishing our workout, because that is when our muscles are really primed to absorb the nutrition that we give it better than if we wait. And if we refuel right away, it can help regulate hunger later on. So sometimes runners, especially in the heat, will finish a workout and just have no appetite. And what happens is later, they're just like, they feel like they could eat the entire kitchen. We don't want that to happen. We don't want, poor fueling to lead to binge eating later. Plus, you're delaying that recovery process. So carbs, we need to get in some carbs to replenish energy stores. We need protein to actually provide the building blocks to repair our muscles. There's muscle damage that occurs during cardio just as much as it does during strength training. And then we also want to replace our sweat losses. We have a whole section coming up on fluids, so I won't focus too much on that. So ideally, and I know this isn't going to work for everyone, ideally we time the post-workout window with a meal. So if you are exercising first thing in the morning and you can get your breakfast in within an hour, just make sure that breakfast contains carbs and protein, right? Have it be a balanced meal, and then you don't have to worry about adding a post-workout kind of snack or supplement. If you're working out mid-morning or around lunchtime, maybe you can get in a turkey or tuna sandwich, or some sort of balanced meal at lunch, and that can be your post-workout carbs and protein. And if you're working out after work, this is a little tricky because of commutes and stuff, but ideally then you just kind of try to have your dinner a little bit earlier, something like a stir fry, right? Rice is carbs, shrimp, chicken, or tofu is protein. The veggies and the oil balance out the meal, but sometimes you are going to find yourself in a situation where it's going to be 2, 3, maybe even 4 hours until you can have a meal after you've worked out. And so in that case, we do want to have a post-workout snack. And I just put together some ideas here. Greek yogurt, excellent protein source. Berries and granola is your carbs. Cottage cheese, another great protein source. Melon or pineapple would be your carbs. Flax would give you a little bit of healthy fats. Apple with a cheese stick. Apple's the carbs, cheese sticks the protein, also a little bit of fat. Grapes are the carbs with hard-boiled eggs, which are protein, a little bit of fat. Maybe you do a little mini pita with turkey and cheese. Whole grain crackers topped with tuna. A protein bar or shake, ideally one that also contains carbs. And if not, if it's just strictly a protein bar or protein shake, pair it with a banana or piece of fruit to get those carbs in. Chocolate milk. You often will find this at the end of a long distance race because it's going to give you carbs from the dairy and the chocolate, protein from the milk. If you don't do dairy, you can try soy, or you can try a protein fortified nut milk. There's a lot of those on the market now. You can also do a smoothie as long as it's got carbs from fruit and then protein from either a protein powder or yogurt. This is one of my favorite recovery smoothie recipes. It's really just a template that you can customize because I would say that a lot of times store-bought or like pre-made smoothies don't always have enough protein and they can be very high in sugar. So it's great to make your own if you can, control the ingredients. In this case, we're getting protein from Greek yogurt. You can also use tofu or protein powder. You can use dairy milk or any kind of milk alternative, which will kind of affect how much protein you're getting. Half a cup or more of fresh or frozen berries. Other frozen fruit works well here too, like mango, pineapple. A banana is a really great source of quick digesting carbs, plus it adds natural sweetness to the smoothie. And then for some bonus nutrients, you can throw in your favorite green. So that's a great option. And it can even be like a breakfast or a mini meal, depending on what time of day you're having it. All right. Somebody asked about electrolytes earlier. I mentioned hydration in the post-workout recovery, so we will kind of get into that next. But let's see if anyone has any questions.
All right. You answered one of them about protein shakes. The other two are about specific brands of things. There is one question about salt tabs for runs, for long runs and rides.
Yes, we will definitely talk about salt tabs with the electrolytes and the hydration in this next section. With
Okay.
brands of protein bars and shakes, I mean, there's a lot of different things to think about. One is just like, do you like it? Does it taste good to you? Is it affordable? You know, some protein bars and shakes right now are like so expensive. I just can't believe what people are like paying money for. So, you know, just consider, do you like the taste of it? And, you know, is it affordable? And then ideally, I would go, especially with the supplements, I would go with a third-party verified brand. So something that has the NSF certification on it, the USP certification on it, or something that's informed sport or informed choice. Basically, it means because the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, does not oversee, and hopefully, I know some of you might be in outside of the US, but for those of you in the US, the Food and Drug Administration oversees food and drugs, and by law, supplements fall into this murky middle category where there's like really not a lot of oversight. So if the brand has elected to be third-party tested, you can guarantee that what's inside is what it's claiming to be. And Consumer Labs is a website you can go to kind of put in your product and see if it's been third-party tested. I know that all the Kirkland products, so you can get things you can get at Costco or USP verified. Some brands like PE Science and Optimum Nutrition, I think, are Informed Sport and Informed Choice. The Cellucor and Muscle Milk are NSF certified. So Orgain is a really, really great like clinical strength kind of product. So the other thing to think about is the source of the protein. Is it whey casein protein, which is derived from dairy? Is it plant-based protein? In which case, probably soy or pea are going to be your best options. Sometimes those ones are better digested than others. So yeah, there's a lot of different things to think about.
And then there's one about the benefits of kombucha after a workout.
I don't think that there's research at this point to say that kombucha has a role in post-workout that I've seen yet. Kombucha is a fermented product. There are benefits for gut health to include fermented foods and beverages in your diet. So things like kimchi or even like Greek yogurt and kefir. Basically, like it's gonna have good bacteria, probiotics that positively affect your gut health, and then your gut health positively impacts many different aspects of your health. So I think that having fermented foods in your diet is beneficial. I don't think having it immediately post-workout is necessary, at least based on research I've seen. And I'd be careful with kombucha just to check the sugar, because some of the kombucha products are actually a pretty concentrated source of sugar, which you may or may not know and be intending to have. And so that's just something to kind of watch out for.
All right. I'll keep a tab on some of these other ones and we can keep on moving.
Yeah, that's a great question, though. Especially it's a good segue into hydration, because kombucha is a beverage for fermented sugar and vinegar and all that. Okay, so we definitely want to talk about fluids, and kind of like before we talked about pre, during, and post exercise nutrition, we talked about the importance of balanced meals. The same thing is kind of true for fluids. So it's definitely important to drink enough fluids before, during, and after exercise, but we also can't just neglect drinking water in the rest of our day. There's only so much we can guzzle right before we head out for a run or on a run, right? We want to start our workouts already well hydrated. Plus, water doesn't just play a role in athletic performance, it also is essential for life. So our bodies are 50% or more of water. I would say for somebody with more muscle mass, you could be 60 or 70% water. It helps us regulate our body temperature, so preventing us from getting too cold or too hot. We need it for energy reactions, so basically how our body is breaking down macronutrients for energy. And this is really key with exercise. It maintains a proper blood volume and electrolyte balance, which we then need for all the other like health and performance aspects. Again, staying on top of our hydration in daily life is paramount before we even talk about hydrating for exercise. By the time we feel thirsty, it can mean that we're already dehydrated. So we kind of want to stay ahead of that and not necessarily wait until the thirst cue kicks in to start drinking. Also, sometimes thirst can masquerade as hunger. So you might think that we're hungry for a snack when really we need like a big glass of water. As far as how much we need as a base for water intake, I've heard a lot of crazy things, like people trying to drink 1 gallon or 2 gallons a day. I definitely frequently hear half your body weight in water, and that is actually not an evidence-based guideline. It may work, depending on your body size, it may work out great for you, but it's not an evidence-based guideline, and it may overestimate fluid needs for someone in a larger body or at a heavier weight. So I would say base of 8 ounce glasses, which translates to 64 ounces or about 2 liters. And then also you want to replenish any fluids that you lose during exercise. So kind of weighing yourself before and after can help you gauge if that's something you're interested in really doing. 16 ounces is a pound. So if you get on the scale before and after a run or a ride and you've lost 2 pounds, that's 32 ounces of fluid that you need to replenish. So basically a full liter. If you take on any fluids on the run or the ride, which you should, you want to account for that too. But sweat rates vary greatly, and certain health conditions or medications also affect fluid needs, like diuretics, kidney issues, things like that, even heart issues can affect your water needs. So this is not like a substitute for medical advice. This is just general guidance. Outside of exercise, when there may be a role for beverages with sugar, we want to stick primarily to water and other beverages that are sugar-free. So things like carbonated is great too. Things like LaCroix or AHA. And there's like endless beverages that are carbonated and sugar-free or like low sugar on the market now. Every time I go to a store, I see something new. So that's fine. That's all great. Also, if you're eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, you're drinking tea, you're drinking coffee, you're having soup, you're eating dairy, that actually provides some fluid too. But alcohol does not count. So alcohol is a diuretic, and when you're drinking alcohol, hopefully in moderation, you need to increase your fluid intake to make up for it. If plain water is boring, that's, very common. People find that. Try adding maybe lemons, limes, herbs like basil or mint, maybe some frozen berries. That gives your water a little bit of flavor without added sugar. And then probably most of you have done this already, but investing in a reusable water bottle and then setting some goals for how often to refill it. So, if it's a 20-ounce bottle, maybe you're trying to drink 3 of those throughout the day. If it's a liter, maybe you're trying to drink 2 throughout the day, 1 before lunch, 1 before you leave work for the day. And then anything on top of that is like bonus. Then you can have like a carbonated water with lunch, or you can have some Gatorade with your workout. If you struggle to drink enough water during the day, very common, especially when you get busy, try setting a timer. There's even apps out there that are specifically designed to help busy people remember to drink their water. And I've even seen water bottles, like big water bottles that have times on them. So you kind of gauge throughout the day, like, are you staying on top of your hydration? It's 10 a.m. I should be done with this much water. It's 4 p.m. I should be done with this much water. And if you're curious to know like how well you're doing, you can assess your hydration status by monitoring the color and the output of your urine. So it should look like a nice light lemonade color, like a straw color, not like iced tea. And if you find yourself not needing to go at all throughout the day, that's probably a sign that you need to step up your fluids. So that's sort of the base of how we want to stay on top of our hydration during the work day. Now we kind of want to talk about during exercise, before, during, and after exercise, because we're going to be sweating a lot more. And the risk for dehydration, especially as we move into the hotter summer months, is high. It's going to occur more easily in hotter, humid temperatures, and it can be really dangerous. Some of the symptoms include feeling dizzy, feeling lightheaded, having chills, which I know is ironic, but that's what really happens. Cognitive impairment, so your brain starts to feel kind of foggy and you can develop muscle cramps. The definition of dehydration is a loss of 2% of your body weight. So that's not a lot. That's just 3 pounds for someone who weighs 150 pounds. So again, if you've ever like stepped on a scale before or after a run or a ride and you've lost 3 pounds, you're technically dehydrated if you weigh 150 pounds. And when we are dehydrated, it has really harmful effects, or it can have really harmful effects on our health and safety, but it really just impairs performance. So if that's something you're being driven by, you're training for a race, then you really want to stay on top of it and prevent it. So how do we do that? How do we prevent this dehydration? Like I keep saying, we want to start hydrated, right? There's only so much water we can guzzle right before we head out comfortably. So we're just trying to stay on top of our fluid intake throughout the day. Then in the 2 to 4 hours before we head out on a run or a ride, the recommendation is 2 to 4 milliliters per pound of body weight. I'm translating this. So 300 to 600 milliliters if you weigh 150 pounds, or 10 to 20 ounces. So maybe you just focus on, like, again, if you weigh a little bit less or a little bit more, you have to alter this, but 10 to 20 ounces in the few hours before you head out. And that's in addition to kind of your other fluids for the day. Then during exercise, the goal is to keep up with your sweat rate. It's almost impossible to do, but that's the goal. And that's both in terms of the amount of fluid you're losing and in the electrolytes you're losing. We'll get to that in a second. Everybody's sweat rate and the composition of their sweat is different, and it's affected by the environment too. But the thing to keep in mind is if we're constantly sweating, we're constantly replenishing. So carry your own bottle out there if you can. Invest in a waist option, or the handheld bottles, or even the backpack if you're a runner. If you're on the bike, there's usually some more options as far as like being able to stick a water bottle onto one of the panes, or even still wearing something on like a vest of some sort. Sip frequently. So the recommendation is 0.4 to 0.8 liters per hour, which is 4 to 6 ounces. Just try to take a few gulps every 15 minutes, and that would get you to the liter per hour recommendation. And basically, like with my runners, it's just like every 15 minutes, take a few big sips, and you'll kind of hit the mark. And then it also prevents you from having to like drink a whole bunch of water at once, which is not very comfortable, whether you're riding, but especially if you're running. It's just sloshing around in there. Then afterwards, just like with post-exercise nutrition, we want to replace our fluid losses as quickly as we can, to like not hang out in that dehydrated state any longer than necessary. Again, weighing before and after can help you gauge just how much, remembering that 16 ounces a pound, and then continue hydrating throughout the day. It's not just like a one-time thing. You get back from your run or your ride, especially in the heat, you down your water and you're done all day long for the rest of the day. And so many different factors here. If it's a more intense run or ride compared to a walk or a jog, how long you're out there for, 30 minutes versus 90 minutes, very, very different. Individual factors, like I mentioned, your sweat rate is going to be very different from someone else's, and then the environment. So humidity makes a huge difference. Some of you who may be out in like high altitude, actually that increases fluid needs too. So lots of factors to consider, but general guidelines. When we just want water, when we're just drinking water, obviously all we're getting is fluids. We're not getting any electrolytes. This is fine for moderate intensity exercise, less than 45 minutes, moderate climate. If you're a super salty sweater and it's really hot and humid and you're out there for 30 minutes, you might need some electrolytes. But for the most part, moderate intensity, less than 45 minutes, moderate climate, water is fine. When might we want water and electrolytes and carbs? That's when we're talking about like a Gatorade, a Powerade, or any of those products that you mix into water, like a Scratch or a Tailwind. That's when those solutions are ideal when you're going out for longer than 60 minutes. The temperature and the humidity is up. You're going really intense, or you happen to be someone who's a really salty sweater. So you come back from a run or a ride and you see crystallized salt on your skin. The main electrolyte that we're losing and that we want to consider is sodium. And so really those drinks should be sodium based. That should be the main electrolyte. There's a lot of misconceptions here. People doing coconut water as instead of Gatorade or Powerade. Coconut water is great, but the primary electrolyte is potassium. What we really, really need is sodium. And this is like the sugar. It's the opposite of general health guidelines, but it's really, really key, and it's a common misunderstanding. So look for a sports product. Look for something that's really designed for athletes. And really, this is what you want for those longer duration runs and rides, because just like we are losing a lot more sodium on those longer runs and rides, we're also needing carbs. Remember, those longer duration exercise, we also need to replenish carbs, fuel. Okay. When might we want water and electrolytes without the carbs? So this could be an alternative to water if you're not needing or not wanting the added sugar. So maybe it's just something you're sipping on during the day, between exercise. Maybe you're getting your carbs from somewhere else on the ride, like you're having a gel or a shot blocks or jelly beans. So you just want to get the electrolytes, not the carbs from your fluid. That's cool. That's when you could go with a product like Powerade Zero, Gatorade Zero, Noon tablets, or like someone asked earlier, the salt tabs. So when you dissolve the salt tabs in your water, you're getting the main electrolyte you're losing, but you're not getting the carbs or the sugar. So making sure you're getting that from someplace else. I know that's a lot. I want to actually pause here and see if we have any questions. Is anyone familiar with these types of products? Has tried them before?
It doesn't look like we've got questions. Is the chat working? Anyone? It said it got muted for a second, so I tried to unmute it, but just some people talking about different types of tablets.
Okay.
So.
And I can't see the chat right now, but I guess the key thing is that, because I feel like there's a lot of confusion about this, Gatorade, Powerade, Scratch, Tail, and these products, they have sugar. So sometimes people, like athletes, will look at these products and be like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe how much sugar is in these products. It's horrible. No, there's a reason it's got sugar. It's the simplest form of carb. It's specifically designed for endurance exercise. So if you're doing endurance exercise, you need that sugar. You should have that sugar. You don't need to fear that sugar. Any other time, pretty much, I would not choose a Powerade or a Gatorade or a sugary beverage. I would really, really limit the use of those to what they're designed for. So if you're going for a 30-minute jog, don't have it. Have the zero version. Or, just have water. But just know that there's a reason the sugar and the sodium is in those products, because that's what athletes need on long endurance rides and runs. Outside of exercise, like earlier here, we want to stick mainly to sugar-free beverages. So there's a very big difference between what we need for exercise and what we need for just daily life and general health. I hope that's helpful. Okay, cool. And remember, the primary electrolyte loss in sweat is sodium. It's great to have potassium. It's great to have magnesium. It's great to have calcium. But most of that stuff is like marketing at this point, like all the different products that are telling you need all these other electrolytes. You do, but sodium is primary. Okay. Just have a few more minutes. I don't know if we want to go through these micronutrients or see if we've got questions. What do you think, Jacob?
I think we can keep going. Nothing new has popped up, so we can keep going and get to some questions at the end if we have time.
Okay. All right. So I'm considering all of you as athletes here. And I think anyone who's exercising regularly and working towards a fitness goal can consider themselves an athlete. So let's look at some specific nutrient considerations with that in mind. First being antioxidants. You probably have heard that term. You might not know exactly what it means. Antioxidants are compounds that neutralize and destroy free radicals and prevent the free radicals from damaging our cells, our tissue, and our DNA. They also prevent inflammation, they support immune health, and they promote recovery. So if we're exercising more or a lot, we're creating more free radicals. So actually, the more you exercise, the more you need to have antioxidants from your diet compared to someone who's just sedentary. And the great thing about antioxidants is that they're found in a wide range of whole foods, things that we can and should already be eating, and that are easily incorporated into a balanced diet. So someone's multitasking. Okay, so some antioxidant food sources.
Please hang up and dial 911. All calls are completely
cool. Okay, so can you still see my screen?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. All right. So these are not the only antioxidants, but they're four main ones that can be found in food: vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin E, and zinc. And look at the foods they're found in. Really, really nutritious. healthy foods that, we should all be eating anyway. So vitamin C, we're going to get from citrus fruits, oranges, grapefruit, tangerines, veggies, bell pepper, strawberries, tomatoes, broccoli, cantaloupe, cauliflower, kale, kiwi, papaya, right? So, we're going to get lots of vitamin C from these foods, plus fiber, and other, powerful plant compounds, much, much more effective and beneficial for health than just popping a vitamin C pill. Vitamin A, the plant form is known as beta carotene, another really powerful antioxidant, many different roles in health. We can find these in orange pigmented foods like sweet potatoes, carrots, pumpkin, spinach, broccoli, and apricots. Side note, it's orange pigmented, but in foods like broccoli and spinach, the chlorophyll, the green pigment, overshadows it, which is why they don't look orange. And then it can also be found in animal foods like eggs and fortified dairy milk. Vitamin E is a fat-soluble antioxidant. We can get it in nuts and almonds and other nuts, sunflower and other seeds, peanut and other nut butters, vegetable oils, and fortified nut milks. And then zinc is a mineral, not a vitamin, and we can get it in both plants and animals, beef, fish, seafood, dark meat, poultry, pork chop, whole grains, fortified cereal, beans, chickpeas, pumpkin, and other seeds, almonds and other nuts, and tofu. It is better absorbed from animal sources, but I think as long as you're getting a variety of the plant sources, you will be fine. So again, don't need to go out and buy pills. Just eat a variety of nutritious foods, and you're going to probably get most of the antioxidants that you need. Calcium is a mineral that is essential for building and maintaining strong bones. So we want to get enough calcium through our diets to improve our bone mineral density and prevent stress fractures. This is really important for runners, but it's also important for cyclists. The best food sources of calcium are honestly dairy, so milk, yogurt, and cheese. If you are eating plant alternatives, non-dairy alternatives, typically they're fortified with calcium, but you just want to check. And then it's going to be naturally found in some other plant foods like dark leafy greens, beans, tofu that's been set in calcium, some nuts, fish with bones. So yeah, making sure you're getting a variety of non-dairy foods if you are not eating dairy. The absorption of calcium is enhanced by vitamin D. That's why most calcium supplements and all dairy is fortified with vitamin D. How much you need. So it depends on your age. After age, I believe 50, the recommendation goes up to 1,200 milligrams, but for adults 19 to 50, it's 1,000 milligrams per day. Again, if you're not consuming any dairy, if you're following a vegan diet, you might need to supplement unless you're actively choosing these fortified foods. Vitamin D, a fat-soluble vitamin, it's actually not widely found in the food system. It's mainly made on our skin through exposure to sunlight. So actually, if you're exercising outdoors, this time of year, your vitamin D levels might be fine. But in the winter months, or if you're not exercising outdoors, it's pretty common deficiency, especially among people with darker skin. There's, again, not a lot of food sources: fatty fish, fortified dairy, egg yolks, and mushrooms. If you're not regularly consuming those foods and you don't spend a lot of time outside, or you have darker skin, it might be worth testing your vitamin D levels, and that might be one to supplement if they're low. Iron's a harder one to get if you don't eat a lot of red meat or fish. It's definitely found in plants, but it's not as well absorbed from plants. And basically, iron's a mineral that it makes up a protein in red blood cells. The red blood cells carry our oxygen to our working muscles during exercise. So if we're iron deficient or we're not getting enough iron, we're going to feel more fatigued and we're going to have impaired endurance on our runs and our rides. So maybe something to test if you're feeling fatigued or you're having issues with endurance, or you're eating a restrictive diet. But yeah, red meat, fish, seafood, poultry, the best sources. You can get some from beans, peas and lentils, tofu, dark leafy greens, whole grain and enriched breads, fortified breakfast cereal, nuts, and seeds. And if you are trying to get your iron from plant sources, pairing it with vitamin C will enhance absorption. So like you're having maybe a spinach salad, I'll always use that example. That's a dark leafy green. There's going to be some non-heme plant iron in that. Top it with a dressing that's maybe made with lemon, or top it with orange segments or tomatoes or strawberries or something with vitamin C. How much? So females need more iron than men because through menstruation, we're losing iron through our blood each month. So 18 milligrams a day for females, 8 milligrams a day for men. And athletes, especially runners, often have increased needs because of the pounding. You're actually breaking down some red blood cells with all the pounding. So potentially, yes, again, if you're struggling with endurance, you're struggling with fatigue, you should maybe consider getting your iron levels tested. And then supplementing if and only if it's needed, or just trying to get more of the food sources in your diet. I think this is my last one. So when we talked about healthy fats earlier, I mentioned that omega-3s are a particularly healthy type of fat. There's a host of well-documented health benefits here. Cardiovascular health, diabetes, cancer risk, all that stuff, arthritis. But for athletes in particular, it's going to help reduce inflammation and promote recovery. So I would say, trying to have a few servings a week of fatty fish like salmon, tuna, mackerel, herring, or sardines is beneficial. Sometimes you can find dairy and eggs that are fortified with DHA and EPA, which are the active, powerful forms of omega-3s. And you can get a less active form that needs to be converted called alpha-linoleic acid, ALA, from plant sources, so walnuts, chia seeds, and ground flax. Not a bad idea to incorporate those into like your yogurt, your oatmeal, your baked goods, just to kind of boost those omega-3 fats. And you're going to get some other health benefits from those foods as well. Fiber, good stuff. Okay. I know that was a lot. I just have one slide to kind of wrap up, and then we'll see if there's any questions. So the takeaway here, what I'm hoping you walk away with today, is that nutrition has a powerful role on your health and on your exercise performance. Fueling appropriately before, during, and after exercise will help you optimize your energy, your performance, and your recovery. But what you eat outside of exercise matters too. So we can use that plate method template to build balanced meals in any setting, no matter what your food preferences are, and that will help keep you satisfied and energized. We want to prioritize hydration in daily life and around workouts, especially as the heat and humidity builds, at least here in Georgia. And then for all those micronutrients, those vitamins and minerals, if we're thoughtful about our food choices and we're eating a balanced, varied diet, we can usually get what we need. All right. I'm hoping that's what you guys walk away from today. I know it's a little over time, so some folks may have already dropped off, but thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Jacob, for coordinating this and hosting the questions. If you want more individualized support with your nutrition, I do offer individual services through the Cox Fitness Centers. We can do it virtually or on site. So reach out to Amy Bush or Jacob if you're interested in learning more about that.
All right. So it doesn't look like we have any other questions. And like Alyssa said, if you guys have any, if you guys want some more personalized stuff, just reach out to myself or Amy Bush, and we can get you connected and get that set up. But thank you, Alyssa. Lots of hand clapping going on, so people really enjoyed it.